Gary Jackson. I do work for Click. I'm director for SI and Tech Partnerships. Well, what's really funny is I don't even know how I got here. That's what's really surprising to me. I shouldn't be standing up here talking about Click at all. Actually, my background was SaaS. I was going to die SaaS. That's what I wanted to do. And it just happened that I contracted swine flu, and it just changed my life. You won't get it. I'm immune now, and I can't spread it anymore. But that situation, that experience completely changed what I do. So I wanted to kind of bring that up, and I think that Martin said two amazing things, and I don't know if you really caught them. They don't hoard data. Imagine them hoarding all of the collider information. They basically consume what they need and throw away the rest, or maybe archive it for later purposes. That's something I want you to keep in the back of your mind. And the second thing, which is also very important, is, which I think is allowing others to be able to see what they've done. Edward Snowden changed the game about when we talked about data transparency. And these two things is what affected me profoundly when I had swine flu. So just to kind of give you the story, I was doing a couple of implementations. First of all, I'm going to be talking about the myth of BI. I guess I got to introduce myself in the presentation speech. I was doing several implementations, as we all are. A lot of us are technical people, and we've been out there in the field. I've been out in the field for 15 years. Lived in South Africa for 4, been in Hong Kong for 8, lived in Brazil for a year, Germany, and then because of the accent, I'm originally American. I try to say I'm Canadian because they're nicer people. But so I've been around the world, and I've been stuck in freaking data centers for 15 years, trying to do warehouse projects and build BI and do all this stuff. And as I was doing these projects, you know, family would call, family, parents, kids, all this stuff happens, and you're stuck. And I just got sick of that experience of always being stuck, building stuff, and it gets replaced a year later. And so I remember when I was doing an implementation in Mumbai, I was working at HDFC, I started feeling sick. No big deal. We got to keep going. You know how you feel guilty when you get sick at a customer site when you're traveling? You can't just leave. You feel crap. So I stayed on site, started doing some work, went to Shanghai, went to ICBC. I was doing a project there. I started getting sicker. And this was in 2010, right when the swine flu epidemic was really kind of blowing up. And so I remember I got on the plane from Shanghai. They actually had a team of people coming in and checking everybody to see if they're sick. They didn't spot me for some reason. I'm not sure why, but... So I was sitting by the plane. I started coughing a lot. There was a guy beside me. He's like, "Stop coughing! Don't be coughing on me." Like, what do you? And I remember I made this joke. I said, "Oh, what do you think? I got swine flu?" And I did. So I went from Shanghai to Manila, and I was doing a project for BPI. And I remember it was a Saturday. Had to make people work on a Saturday. We had a project deadline. We had to get it done. Got the whole project team locked into a project room. We were doing this thing, so it was a locked room, and I was getting very, very, very sick. But I kept going. I infected my entire team with swine flu. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that and how that impacted them as well in this correlation situation I was talking about. So finally what happened was I got so sick I went to the emergency room. And basically, it took a long time to get the results back, but the hotel found out they thought it might be swine flu, so they quarantined me for 10 days in my hotel room. I couldn't leave, and I felt so sad for room service because I kept ordering the same sandwich every day, and they were knocking on the door so scared, and they would put it in with their masks, and one guy wore a trash bag trying to protect himself. So I stayed in quarantine for 10 days, and I got sicker and sicker, and then finally they found out, yes, you have swine flu, and so they sent me to Manila in the downtown hospital there in Manila, and they quarantined me again. And in this quarantine, they started giving me the antibiotics to stop it and stuff, and I had no internet. I had my laptop, I had no internet, and I went stir crazy. There was one television that was there, and I started watching, I don't know if you have any friends that are Filipino or whatever, I started watching a TV show called Wow Wow Wee. And I just getting addicted to that show. That's all I had. So I started going stir crazy, and I had all this data that I'd been collecting to do some proof of concept stuff. Had a laptop, and then because I worked at SAS, dang it, my SetNet had expired. I couldn't even do the work on my SAS work that I did, the set license. But I had a USB drive that a buddy of mine had given me. He was a partner in this company called ClickView. And I was like, I didn't know what it was. I was completely bored out of my mind. So I got the USB, I installed it, and I said, what am I going to do with this? And I said, and one of the biggest issues when I had swine flu, when they started trying to take me to the hospitals, they could not figure out which hospital to take me to. They didn't have the antibiotics, and they didn't have beds to put me in or quarantine facilities. They took me to 4 hospitals. As I was in each emergency room, I infected everybody in those emergency rooms. I made it worse. And the thing about it is they had no idea. So when I sat in quarantine in this little room, all I had was, it was a big SaaS program, a data step, proc step, but I couldn't do anything because my setting had expired. I started playing around with ClickView. And I said, I don't want this to ever happen again. Is there some way I can create something that while I'm in the ambulance, they could actually route around and be able to see, okay, we have this amount of beds, we have this amount of antibiotics, and they don't have to infect other people. One of my good friends, one of my project team, his mother got sick from swine flu, had a heart attack as well, almost died because of all the complications. And one of the things I wanted to get out of that whole experience is, as I started building apps with ClickView, I built them very, very quickly. I built my first one, swine flu app, it was my first one I ever built. And I faked some of the data that I had, but then I mashed some data I had some CRM information, warehouse information, then I had some hospital stuff that I'd kind of faked up. And so I started putting it together. Then I started using real data to kind of cross it through. By that 10 days, I had something that you could use with an iPad while you're in the ambulance to try to figure out where to go. And I didn't need a data model. I didn't need metadata. I was like, and this was in 3 days. Then I built another one in another 3 days. And so when I was out, I had 3 apps. I'm like, this is what I've been needing to do. I'm tired of being stuck in the data center. I'm tired of doing implementations that take 2 years and not being able to see my family. I can do something to change and disrupt. And then when I came out, I said, this changed me. And so that's kind of one of my story that kind of brought me into Click was a guy just giving me a USB stick, and I get in swine flu. So that's kind of my story. I moved on from SAS, obviously, to work for a computer sciences corporation, and one of the things that we did was we created a predictive analytics team. So I went down the path that all of you are going down, and I went down the SAP HANA path. I loved SAP HANA, still do, love R. I just couldn't afford the license at that time because we were a small team. And then I moved over from that to TIPCO Spotfire. I loved that as well. Started doing a lot of work with that. But I kept going back to that USB drive. You know what I mean? Just building an app that I could just mash things together. I don't care about models. I don't care about metadata. I just want to see if I can disrupt something. Then I got really into I moved over to Brazil to do some work before the Olympics and the World Cup, because they were trying to predict cross-sell, upsell security situations. So I moved over to Brazil, and I started using Tableau phenomenally. And I was doing some amazing reporting, but I couldn't create the app. I wanted to create something that once I created here, I could put it across the firewall and let other people interact with it, to be able to consume. And that's when I got someone asked me, hey, would you be interested? I said, definitely. So my goal for you, all of you, and I know I'm talking Click. Let's not talk about Click. I just want to talk about the myth of BI. I'm very proud of all the vendors that are out there. There's no SAP. There's no Oracle. All the biggies. We're the Davids versus the Goliaths. And I'm so proud of all of them going out there. Our whole goal now is to change the world, not make you buy it and implement it for 4 years. And that's an amazing disruption. First of all, give an applause to all of give them a round of applause for all this disruption. I think this is really good. I think I'm very proud of that. So one of the things I wanted to kind of bring up, and I promise you it's not going to be a product speech. I just wanted to kind of take the concepts and apply it, regardless of the technologies that you're using, okay? But I do have to say this. It's kind of not a legal disclaimer, but Click is not BI. It's not. If it's BI, then I would not be here. That would be boring. It's a business discovery platform. It's an app. And I don't mean in an iPhone way, but it's basically, so for example, soon as I stood up this morning and you started hearing me talk, you're like, oh crap, another American, lot too much energy, he needs to get off the caffeine. There's certain patterns that you know from previous experiences you kind of identified with. That's what we do. Patterns. Do you realize in every one of your businesses, there's a success pattern that creates something that always ends in a closure or sale or people leave? One of the apps that I was building is I could predict when people are going to quit the job before we hired them. That's a very powerful. So it's a success pattern, a combination of that. That's what business discovery is. You don't have to call it business discovery. Use the concept. Find your technology, whatever you're using, to find a success pattern quickly. A certain combination that always results in a sale or a success. That's what I encourage you to try to find out. So just to kind of break this down, again, just to kind of, I want to get the Click technology stuff kind of out of the way because I do love it so, but one of the things I was going to say is Click is not BI, and it's not just visualization. I was a partner of Click for 4 years, doing Click implementations and stuff. I would hardly use the BI component. I used the free in-memory database, the scalable in-memory database. It was RAM-based. At that time, I couldn't afford HANA. It was too expensive. So I called it, when I was a partner, poor man's HANA. That's what I used it for. And so basically, Click, when you're looking at this from a business discovery platform perspective, I use the associate. And I'm not sure if you know much about Click. One of the most powerful things, and this is just a concept. You can use this on your own for all the technologies you're using. Don't be bound by the metadata or the models that you guys are using. I used to throw data into Click and just see if it would associate. We have an associative engine that if you throw data inside of it, it basically will meld it. It's not a blending. A blending is trying to manipulate and change things. We actually would mash data together. So, for example, I used to bring CRM information, just connect to a CRM system, connect to a data warehouse, and I'd throw Fitbit information in and see if I can associate it. To be able to do cross-sell and upsell for specific health or sports products. I just wanted to see if I could make things associate. Then once I associated it in the associative engine and the API, I would use that. Then I would just store it in memory. It was a denormalized data set that I could just use. It ran on a port, and I could just do anything queries to it. So I could grow it up to multiple terabytes. One of our customers is doing a petabyte a day of just throwing stuff in memory. And then, of course, the other one is the visual objects. Basically, you got... but I hope after this conference, and before I say it, I just want you to kind of relish in what I'm about to say. I hope in about 5 years, pie charts and bar charts are dead. I think that they tell information, but they don't invoke action. And one of the things I was doing with the visualization objects in the API was just getting people to create visualizations that allow people to touch the visualization, to start asking true questions, arguing in the conference room. If we want to change it, this is how we have to change to be disruptive. And that's when I used the visualization objects and the API from Click. And then the last one is the social collaboration, share it, the API component. Now, there's other pieces to this that I'd like to bring up. That is what we call a Click app. A business discovery app has all five of these technologies. They're bundled into Click. I would use one or two, and then I would go to a visualization, or I would use them all at the same time. And one of the other things that I wanted to bring up is being able to integrate it with analytics, skins, as I call it, WebGL, and I actually embed a lot of the Click stuff into content management systems, Alfresco, that kind of thing. So just want to kind of state that Click is not just BI. There's a lot of technology in there. And regardless of the technology that you're using, look for those technologies. Don't sit around and have to wait. Disrupt, change, associate. Now, one of the other things that we're trying to encourage people is we want you to build apps for Click and sell them. We can't make any money from apps. Click can't make any money. We can't make any money from IP. We only make money when users use. And I'm tired of people having reports that no one uses. So we're trying to encourage people to create apps, create data connectors, sell them, make money, disrupt, and change. We have a marketplace where you can put apps, and then basically a Click source is a place where you can create data connectors. And I encourage you, as you're looking at different technologies, one of the things is, how can you make an app, and as you use it internally to disrupt your own organization, also sell it out to your own customers? So, and now let's get into the real nitty-gritty. BI has always been a sunk cost. That's the reason why we're not BI. The myth of BI is we're not BI, a sunk cost. Once you do reports, it's gone. You pay a bunch of money to create some reports, do some consulting services, you create a pie chart, a bar chart, and it's lost. I'm tired of that. Why can't what we do the first time we can reuse it. I call it recycling. Why can't we recycle the visualizations? I was doing a panel one time in Hong Kong for the computer world. I was sitting there with HSBC, which are very good customers. I love them to death, and some other people. And one of the HSBC people that was speaking was basically saying, we're talking about data, privacy. And I asked HSBC basically on the panel, can I have my data? I know there's privacy issues, but it's my data. Can I export it and see myself? Can I? Because I'm pretty good with predictive analytics and visualization. No, that's against the law. We can't. But it's my data. I want to see what you know about me. And that's one of the things we're trying to get across is, things are changing. I know you're looking at BI and looking at visualization, at internal operations and stuff, but your customers want to know what you know about them as well. Why don't you start sharing them? That's the whole reason Edward Snowden did what he did. I'm not a big fan of Edward Snowden, but his goal was to show what they know. And your consumers are saying the same thing. And I will say this, there's a psychology of analytics. If you show your consumers what you know about them, the same thing you're using internally, they become more loyal. Because they can actually say, oh, you know this, or you know this. Oh, I could do this, and make recommendations for them. Why do you think people use Amazon? We're showing them what we know, what we think they're going to do next. It's a relationship. And one of the things is, in that way, BI stops becoming a sunk cost. Stop buying technologies and stop paying a bunch of money that ends up going nowhere. How many times have we bought a warehouse for $20 million and cost 5 years and it's still not finished? The goal now is stop doing the BI as sunk cost and try to reuse and recycle everything you have. That's one concept that I would definitely want to make sure. The other one that we have is standardization is not adoption, right? So one of the things is just because you've standardized on a technology set, I don't care what it is, doesn't mean people are using it. Case in point, we had a Russian mafia in Macau that was basically robbing automated roulette tables. We don't know what they were doing at the time, and there was a call from one of the casinos that was in Macau. Can you come in and try to figure out how this mafia team is doing this Russian team that's doing this thing? All they knew, they couldn't arrest them. They could arrest them, but then it should be replaced by other people. But they would always win at a certain time, and they'd always win a certain amount of money. So basically, they put a call out to lots and lots of different consulting companies and technology firms and all that stuff. My buddy who gave me the USB drive, he called me and said, hey, man, you want to go with me to Macau? And I said, yeah, I'm never going to turn down a trip to Macau. Come on. So I went with him on this trip to go meet this casino. And basically, they gave him some operation data of all the roulette tables, the automated roulette tables. And they said, look, we don't know what they're doing. If you can tell us, that would be great. I'm like, oh. He said, okay. So we got back on, we had our dinner, whatever. We got back on the ferry to go back. On the ferry ride, we found out there was only a specific brand of roulette table they would always steal from. They always stole between 11 and 1 in the morning. And then they would lose money from 1 to 3, but then they would win again from 3 to 5. We saw the numbers and the hot zones of where they were always playing. We also noticed that the mainland Chinese that were betting on top of them would not play when they would lose, but then would watch them because they were watching these guys and would win on top of them. And they wouldn't have gotten caught if it wasn't for the mainland Chinese players that were coming in, betting on top of them and doubling up how much money they were making. That was in 1 hour. And I remember once we arrived in Hong Kong, I turned to my friend and I said, you know what we could do? We could just go back there and play that roulette table. And we could be out of this business. And he's like, no. So finally we turned around. We actually got back on the ferry going back. We created we put a roulette table, showed a heat map, showing where it won, and we showed them. So we went back to the casino and we said, hey, here's your issue. Here are the people, blah, blah. We showed them all. And that was in 2 hours. And the casino said, wow, that's pretty amazing. And my buddy, always being a sales guy, he said, hey, so would you be interested in buying ClickView? And he's like, no, we're standardized on SAP BO. And I'm like, whoa, so you just saved them millions and millions of dollars, but the standardization is going to stop you from disrupting your organization? I don't understand that. So that's one thing I challenge you. I don't care what technology you're thinking about in the back of your mind. Make sure that your adoption is not screwing you up, stealing money from you. Don't be hung up on the technology. Use it all. But the most important thing is consume and use. This is screwed up the future. Angry Birds has screwed up the future, and it's bad. How many have kids that are younger than 5 years old? Just raise your hand if you don't mind. Kids younger than 5 years old. And how many of those have their hands raised has an iPad to their kid? The kid plays with an iPad. Okay, that's smart man. Okay. Kids playing Angry Birds, they will never use the BI that we know. Have you seen your kids? They touch our TVs. I touch the TV at the airport, in the airplanes by accident. I don't know if it's going to be touch or not touch. And touch has screwed us up. Our kids will never say, oh, a mouse, let me type. They're going to want to touch everything. So the next wave of being able to interact and see future and visualization is touch and voice. And if you're not moving to that now, I know you're making heavy investments right now, but if you're not moving to that now, you're going to be totally behind. No one's going to use your system, and everyone will be operationally blind. So what's very important here when we talk about BIs for the next generation, make sure that you're thinking about at least have a skunkworks project where you're working on natural analytics, touch. I use a lot of Leap Motion and Microsoft Connect when I click stuff. It's very easy to use Leap Motion. It's a gimmick. It is. But it's becoming the new way to consume information. Just like what they were talking about the CERN. It's not about keeping all the data. It's about telling the big data story. And how do you get people engaged so they use and consume. And so Angry Birds, thank you. And at least it wasn't Floppy Bird, which Floppy Bird flopped, right? Because it ruined that guy from Vietnam's life. But anyway, that's another story. Scalable. They are one of our customers, King.com, Candy Crush. How many people, I don't want to embarrass you. I'm not going to ask that. That's just embarrassing because it just consumes your time, and that's what it's made for. King.com was one of our biggest customers. They do about 1 petabyte a day, right? And the data keeps changing. They keep throwing logs in. They have app information. They have new iPhones. They have new Samsung models that are coming out. They're sucking in it all. And that's what's very important to say. They're mashing. It's called data mashing. Mashing it and associate. And all they use is click. But what's great about King is when they speak at our conferences, first thing they say is, hey, we're not here to say we're an advocate of click. We'll move soon as there's something that allows us to mash anything we want together and be able to deal with it in real time and touch the data. That's it. And once someone comes out like that, we're gone. And which is fair. And what I think is really powerful about this with Candy Crush is they look at everything to keep you playing. That's so important. The velocity of play for them is so important. They want you to lose your job because you're playing Candy Crush. They want to know why Korean housewives play longer on a Tuesday at 8 o'clock than the other ones. And that is what the insight that they're seeing around this, which is very, very important. Being able to see that using Candy Crush, and actually, I'm not saying go download it, but definitely the papers that they've written about being able to do real-time data discovery about what's going on now is very, very powerful. I very encourage you to do a Google search on what they've been doing around that. And especially before they go IPO. But they're doing phenomenal and a great customer of ours, and they really challenge and disrupt what they're doing. Now, the other thing that I wanted to bring up, which I think is very important, is I am tired of us being locked down to a tablet or a laptop, which I think is very, very important. So I am trying to get you to start thinking about wearables. You should be able to consume information in different ways. Yeah, it's gimmicky. But we're trying to get to the place where actually, this is the Epson Move Rio, and basically being able to wear information, wear what's going on. Now, I do understand that can be disrupted to have in day-to-day life, but we're trying to make sure that people tell big data stories that can impact their life in any way. So I don't want you to get always locked up in, so let me give you a challenge. I try to tell every company I work with, regardless of technology, put a touch screen LED near the water cooler. Challenge your team in 30 days, fill up this LED with everything we need to know about our business and how we can change it in a touchable way. That's it. You can use any technology, any tool. We don't care. 30 days. That's it. And see the amazing things they can do. And that allows them to do self-service, to understand themselves. And one of the things I think is so powerful that we challenge all of our partners and our customers, especially our partners, do not sell Click if you do not use Click. If you're not using Click internally to understand what's going on in your system, please do not sell it. And if you are not using Click to disrupt your own organization, we would like to recommend you to go to our friends outside. We want you to use Click to disrupt it, then white label it, and then sell it to your customers. Because if you can't disrupt your own, you can't disrupt anyone else. And that's a very important thing. And that's where the whole self-service part is, allowing people to know themselves. If they want to mash data together, let them mash. And that's very, very important. Some of the things that, touchscreen, the Lenovo tabletops, the API that we've been connecting up with the Oculus Rift, it's kind of gimmicky, but being able to do VR around a warehouse is kind of cool, especially on the associative engine. Of course, my girlfriend doesn't like that because she thinks I'm looking at something else. But it doesn't matter. That's the virtual reality and then the wearable stuff, which I think is very, very key. So being able to consume. And what I've been harping on a lot is whatever you build and whatever technology, when it's inside your firewall, make sure you're disrupting yourselves and then put it outside your firewall for others to know what you know. We call those consumer discovery apps and charge it as a service. You should actually use it as a service to make revenue because you know about your operations. Let your customers know. For example, we did a project for an insurance company. They wanted their financial advisors and their brokers to be able to see what success patterns always results in a certain product being sold or bought. They knew, and so they just put the same app on the outside, created access for them for a chargeable service, and they were able to see, basically, these are the right customers we got to buy. They didn't build it again. They just put it outside. They just recycled. And that's such an important thing. BI is unidirectional. We want bidirectional. We want it in all directions, allowing them to be able to use information in that, whatever you're using. So I wanted to kind of end it up with this. This is our special instructions. And I know there's a Click logo up there, which is pretty important. But one of the things is I don't care what you're using, but the concepts are very simple. We want you to go home. We're tired of you spending all this freaking time building and creating a model in a warehouse. I know those are important, but we want you to find the insights for this data and these silos of information as quickly as possible so you can go home. And that's one of the reasons, personal reason, that I work for Click. And one of the things that we're looking at is there's instructions that I would try to tell everyone. It's just associate anything. Never tell anyone data's off limits unless you're like stalking your girlfriend or something like that. It's kind of off limits. But if you're, make sure that you can mash any type of data, wearable with social. Right before in here, being able to bring LinkedIn information with Wikipedia and then bring in CRM with no restrictions, mashing together. See if it associates. Then on top of that, touch it. Is there, as you're touching it with a touch screen or being able to interact with gesture controls, as you're interacting with that, being able to find, is there a certain pattern that always does, so you can discover that this is how you make money, or this is, we're losing customers this way, or this person, if we hire them, they're going to be unhappy after 6 months because we already see it before it happens. How do we change it so they won't be unhappy? And then the next thing, which I think we lose this, share it. Make sure that your teams are collaborating together. And then the most important, repeat. Do it one more time. I'm hoping that the next time we meet, all of us out there in this demo booth will have newer technologies, newer software, newer, faster ways. So before long, I want to encourage you, every implementation, everything you do, you should be able to do it in 90 days and get your money back and generate revenue. Two things, 90 days. If you're taking longer than 90 days, you're wasting your time. That's from a personal experience. And I'm not saying it for any technology, it's all of them. And I'm hoping that the next time we meet, in 1 year or in a couple of years from that, it's 45 days. I want the time to be able to create value and outcomes faster and faster and faster so we can finally do stuff, change the world. Anyway, that's all I had to say. I'm Gary Jackson for Click, and it's kind of awkward now because I have to say, thank you, Gary. I appreciate that presentation because I'm also the host. So anyway, thank you guys. So we're going to be having